So talk to me about in context of prioritizing self-care and what that looks like for you. Because I would argue self-care was number one, being like, we're going to make a change.
So one thing I will say that actually Valencia and I have talked about is that those are the types of decisions that teach you to trust yourself. Because I would say that a typical upbringing in America and maybe in schools doesn't really teach you to make your own decisions. Decisions are made for you. What you're going to eat for lunch, what time you're going to eat for lunch, what classes you're going to have, what do you need to graduate, what are you going to do after you graduate, or whatever the case may be, right? So once you're out of high school, there's more decisions to make independently. But once you're out of college, that's it. That's the time to make the decisions. And nobody's going to tell you what's right or wrong, or people will tell you their opinions, but there's no right or wrong. You can't check your answer. You can't check your answer. Yeah. You got nothing to compare. You have to make your decision and trust that you're able to make those decisions. So I had to trust myself to move away. I had to trust myself to take certain jobs, and I had to trust myself to leave certain jobs. When I left my previous job, I was so nervous. I was so scared. I was like ready to put in my 2 weeks notice to my boss. And I texted my boyfriend and I said, oh my God, I'm scared. I can't do this. I'm scared. What am I going to do? And I was like, what if this is not, what if, you know? And the only way that we'll learn to trust ourselves is if we start to make those decisions. I had to get a car, get an apartment, all those decisions I had to make. And I would go to my sister and ask her about it. And I'm like, ultimately, she can't make this decision for me. I can't. And I started realizing I want her to tell me what to do.
Yeah, because you're so used to that.
Yeah.
That feels like you go back to that safety place.
Yeah. Exactly. Tell me what the answer is so that I know that, you make the decision because you can make decisions because you're an adult. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I'm an adult now.
Surprise! So are you.
Exactly. Surprise. I'm an adult. I need to make these decisions now. And I think that speaks to what I think about when I want to have my own kids, helping them make decisions on their own and figure out how to make decisions, not just to make the decisions that I want them to make as much as I might want them to make certain decisions.
Yeah.
But when I'm not around, I want them to be able to make good decisions. And how do I teach them to do that? And so I had to learn, how to have that trust in myself so that I could go on. Because otherwise I'd be stuck at a crossroads all the time. Do I pick this apartment? Do I pick that apartment? Is it a good idea? Can I afford it? Did I do the math? Can I afford a car? Can I afford this? Can I do this? And I just had to get over it.
Oh my gosh.
Get over it, because if you want that apartment, and it's so funny too, because for my apartment, I thought I wanted it. And I was like, oh, maybe I should think about it. I'm not sure, whatever. And then they told me, well, someone else is coming to see it tomorrow. And I was like, oh, no, I'll take it.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, I'll take it. I was like, so if I take it today, does that mean that those people tomorrow don't have a chance? Okay, good. Because I want it,
Yeah,
so,
it kind of forced you to be like, all right, here we go. We're taking the dive.
Yep. I had to. And ultimately, those are the kinds of things that have gotten me to the point where I can make a decision and trust that it will work out. But also if I don't, trust that I'll know what to do or figure out how to handle it, because that's all that we can do. Otherwise, if you don't make a decision, you're going to stay in the same place that you're in.
Yeah. You're staying stuck. And so, not letting that fear get in the way. And I think, and also that understanding that most decisions at the stage of life you're going to make if you make a wrong one, it's not the end of the world. You'll learn something from it. It might not be fun. You might be like, oh, shoot. And, it might be a detour, but you'll learn from it. And I think sometimes in this culture that we have built up, where it's so much built on the prize and the trophy and the success and the list of accomplishments, that we're scared to death to fail. And which is a really bad place for a 22, 23-year-old to be coming out of college, because we don't do a good enough job. And I think it depends on, at least in the schools and in the programs that we have going on. And it just depends on your household of whether parents, give you freedom to kind of, give yourself enough room that we can pull you back off the cliff, but also let you make a decision. Because there's several times I've had conversations with my daughters about like, that's something you need to figure out. And they're like, well, you're the mom. I'm like, but I am the mom, but you are now an adult.
Right. Exactly.
So that it's okay for you to, and if it's wrong, then we'll figure it out. But but we're not set up for that. And so all of a sudden we spring you out into the world and then just expect you to know what to do with very little direction on that. Okay, so we're going to go into confidently setting boundaries, because as you're navigating all of this, I'm thinking that you really have had to set some boundaries to create space for yourself, to take a breath and just create space for what you're just, okay, I that's all I can do with you. I have done what I can do with you. I need to step away so that I can self-preserve.
It's really hard. It's really hard. I think something that I did, or that I realized, was that I needed to respect my own boundaries first before I could expect anyone else to. So I would have this idea that there was something about me or something in my life that was personal and I didn't want to share it with people. And then someone asked me about it and I shared it. And I felt distraught and sad because I betrayed myself because I didn't want to share that. And so that led me to needing to have a conversation with myself about like, okay, it's worse when I betray my own boundaries than when someone else tries to betray my boundaries.
Yeah.
And there's no way
that's so good.
I can set...
That's so true, though.
There's no way I can set a boundary with someone else if I can't set it with myself. So if, let's say I decide that I'll just make something up. I don't have any kids, but let's say I had a child and I didn't want to share that. Or maybe I was pregnant. Maybe that's something people don't want to share sometimes when they're pregnant. Yeah. Maybe I was pregnant, right? And I didn't want to share that, right? And when someone asks me, or maybe they didn't even ask me, or they mentioned pregnancy, and I was like, "Oh, well, actually, I'm pregnant." And then I get home later on, and I'm like, "Wow, Germaine, why did I tell them that? Like, I didn't need to tell them that. I betrayed myself by disregarding that boundary, right? Whereas if I did the opposite and I didn't share that, and I said, you know what, I made even if I wanted to tell them, I decided when I spoke with myself that that's not something I'm going to share. So before I share that, I need to if I want to share it, I need to revisit that conversation with myself. So basically, if I'm going to be the blabbermouth for myself, if I'm going to, sure, that doesn't work, because then I can't put that boundary up of not telling the other person, because even if they don't ask, I'm willing to tell.
Right.
So that gets a little, I feel like the way I explained it is a little complicated, but.
No, I think that's a really great nuance, and we haven't approached it, but that is so true. It starts with us. It starts with,
and I found myself doing that, and I felt very disheartened when I would realize that, of like, oh, man, like I feel like I shared too much, or why do I feel so sad about the conversation that I had with this person? It's like, it's not because the person did anything wrong, but it's because I, knowing that I didn't want to cross a certain line, still crossed it. Yeah. And in that sense, I didn't maintain respect for myself.
Yeah, you abandoned yourself in that.
Exactly. Yeah. And if I can't trust myself, then who can I trust?
Right. Or ask that up. If you can't ask it of yourself.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, oh, wow. And so once I realized that, and I was able to say, okay, I need to be able to respect my own boundaries. That is how I'm going to be able to empower myself to say no to other people.
Right.
So that when the person does ask me, hey, are you pregnant? I'll be like, nope.
Yeah.
Or that's not something I want to talk about, or whatever the boundary is, apply whatever
not
applies
that I'm
to
aware
you.
of.
Right. Or, whatever it is.
Right.
Or, do you want to go out tonight or go out to this party? Nope.
Yeah.
I don't want to go.
And not having to over-explain yourself too.
Exactly. You don't need to give a reason.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm not interested in going. Yeah. I'm okay. And I think we all probably have people in our lives that expect something from us.
Sure.
And that's what makes it difficult.
I'm going to go a little out of order here because I feel like that goes really nicely. So talk about that living out of your own expectations versus others, because that ties, you segued really nicely into that.
It's actually something that I'm struggling with right now because I'm the youngest of 5 girls.
Oh, wow.
And that makes me the baby.
Yeah.
And that makes me the one who most likely had their diaper changed by everyone else.
They've seen you naked.
Right. So I think for some of my family members, it's difficult to see me as an independent adult who will tell you no.
Yeah.
I've had a family member who I literally said, I'm allowed to say no to stuff, right? And it looked like she couldn't compute the math. She was like, no, you can say, what?
Yeah. You're an adult.
And then she said to another family member, she thinks wants us to know she can say no to us. And I'm like, yes, I can say no. Get me a cup of juice, Germaine. No, get it yourself. It's very simple. It's very simple.
You've got 2 legs. You're a grown up. Go get that juice.
and why is that an issue that I have the right to say no?
Yeah.
Why would that be an issue?
Yeah. But I think
do I work for you?
Well, and the expectations and boundaries in families are the most difficult ones.
Yeah.
Because there's so many preset understandings of either we don't have boundaries because we're family and we get to expect things because we're family. And those, I think it's, for me personally, in my experience, it's been a lot easier to set the expectations with people outside than within. And because people within get really mad. They don't like it.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times with people in your family, when they have seen you grow up, when you're a kid, you can't necessarily say no to everything.
Sure.
You can't really be like, clean up your room. No.
Your 9-year-old self is going to get grounded for that.
Right. Exactly. So, but with people outside, they're not seeing you from young. So you get to start fresh with teaching them how to treat you or what you're going to tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel makes it easier with people outside, because they can get upset and they can hit the road jack because we're not family. And you haven't, this is my standard of how I should be treated. And I'm showing you that right away.
Yeah.
Whereas with family members, it's like a transition from baby to back up and respect my boundaries.
Yeah. Time out. I'm not a toddler anymore.
So what was the question?
Well, it was just about expectations, living out of your own expectations versus others.
I think that it does need to be something that you show people. I think showing people that you're not okay with something, not tolerating it. Because when you tolerate something or you pretend that it's okay, then they continue to believe that it's okay.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't communicate those things, you can't expect people to know things that you haven't communicated.
Right. Exactly. And so I think definitely that communicating that. To me, I'm the type of person, I would prefer to just say it straight up. Mm-hmm. And some people get mad.
Yeah.
So in one scenario, you could have someone hear you and say, okay. And then still after that, you have to demonstrate those boundaries.
Right.
But sometimes people won't even hear you out because they don't want to hear it, because to you, to them, you're the baby.
Yeah.
And you need to do what they say.
They've made up their mind already.
They've made up their mind. And in that case, you still have to go on and show them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Just keep reiterating it until they get it.
And to me, I think I'm the type of person who will cut off access if you can't respect the boundary. If my boundary is you need to take off your shoes when you come to my house and you refuse, then you won't be invited to my house anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you've laid the boundary, you've laid the expectation, you've been told, you've been warned.
You made it clear.
You chose not to follow.
Exactly. You've decided that that's not important to you to respect that boundary. So I'm not going to keep inviting you over so you can trample your dirt shoes on my white carpet.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know? Yeah.
So that's what I mean when I say demonstrating it. But I definitely do think the step of communicating it is where it should start.
Yeah. That's
where it should start, is a neutral, our sit down conversation. And I never enter a conversation like that without thinking it through first.
Sure.
And thinking about how to approach it or who I'm talking to and how, they might feel and what might be the best way to communicate that. And I try to get outside opinions too. Like, okay, I might say, Valencia, does this sound, rude when I say it like this? Yeah. I just want to make sure when I go have this conversation with someone that I'm not coming off as, instigating something or hostile.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's a great idea too. Even going with that person you trust that will give you, good, honest feedback when you're having those tough conversations, especially with people that don't want to hear it. And that going in. Oh, yeah. You go in prepared. But I would say you have shown a lot of moxie and really expectations in terms of just the decisions you've made over the last couple of years of leaving Long Island, leaving a job that wasn't working for you. I mean, you have, and I think that you model that. Yeah, go. Absolutely.
Let me mention something. Because there was a time, man, I was not a teenager who acted out very much at all.
Yeah.
Maybe I had a boyfriend when I wasn't supposed to have a boyfriend, whatever.
That was your biggest offense.
Maybe I think that'd probably be my biggest offense. But once I got older and I was like, okay, I'm an adult now and I need to be treated like one. There was a time where I was like, okay, fine. And no one was home and I packed my stuff and I left.
Wow.
And I texted the family group chat, and I said, I won't be living at this house anymore.
Wow.
And when you say I've set the tone for, I don't know, maybe some people might consider that outlandish. I wouldn't say that it's not outlandish.
Sure.
But I think in a maybe dramatic or very stern way of me saying, I am not kidding when I tell you I will not tolerate this.
Yeah, you drew your line in the sand.
And so granted, it was moving from one family member to another family member.
But it's still halfway across the country.
Oh, well, yes, that was a different, I was talking about something else.
Okay. That's another move.
That was a different move. Totally different move. But yes, exactly. Like, when I tell you what my boundaries are, and that's that, don't think that it's gonna be all okay. And I'm going to continue to allow you to, dismiss my boundaries.
Yeah. And just that I'm grown up now. I mean, I think too, especially coming up in a big family and as a youngest, and I'm an oldest, but my husband's a youngest. So I've seen, and so when you kind of get out of that household even a little bit and get a sense of freedom, and people start to see you for something other than the youngest person in your family, that's the baby, and they see you where you are today, who you are in this moment, it just gives you this sense of, whoa, wait a minute here. There's this whole other different kind of world out here and a way that I can be with no preconceived notions. And you get kind of a taste of that and you're like, oh, okay.
And I think the thing too is that my mom didn't treat me that way, or she gave me the freedom.
Okay.
So I had gotten a taste of that from, my teenage years.
Nice. Good job, Mom.
And so, yeah. So she gave me a taste of that. She would trust me. She would, of course she would want to guide me and tell me, be careful, don't do this, don't do that, whatever.
Yeah.
But she would trust me and she would understand and hear me out and try to understand what I was doing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So she did give me that taste of freedom and respect.
Yeah.
Of like, I know you, I know my daughter, I know you have a good head on your shoulders, and I'm still going to tell you to be careful.
Yeah.
And, guide you, but I'm not going to patronize you.
Yeah.
My mom she wasn't patronizing in that sense at all. And she understands my plight, and she's, said to me like, well, guess what? Your sisters are going to have to just get over it and realize that you're an adult and whatever.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. But I think that's, you did some, and I wrap that up saying, you set some tones, and you made some moves that backed up. We talked about earlier, you can't just state it, you got to do it. And I would say that you've done that. And that's
and you have to believe in what you're doing.
Right. And even if you have to believe, and even if you just mostly believe it, having the courage to do it and get out there and do it. Because I would say sometimes we wait I'm not sure, you don't quite believe it yet. I'm like, if you're on your way and there's any sense, and guess what? You can probably turn around and go back if it doesn't work, but step out there and take the opportunity to take the chance. So.
Yeah. And I think with that too, is that people will challenge you.
Sure.
And you have to be ready to stand by what you said.
Right.
And so I will say that I've been challenged in many different ways, and I've had to been like, yes, I did say that.
Yeah. And just own it.
And I meant it.
Yep.
I said it. I meant it.
Yeah.
I was disrespectful. I meant what I said, though.
Right. Yeah. No, and I think that's true, too, because sometimes especially in the heat of the moment in these relationships, we can say what needs to be said, but if we go back and do it differently, maybe it's received differently. That doesn't mean what we said was wrong. And I think sometimes we'll go back and apologize for a package. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Two things can be true. I could have been disrespectful. That doesn't mean what I said didn't have truth to it. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And also recognizing when it is right to apologize and when it's not.
Yeah. And what you're apologizing
for. Sorry when I'm not sorry.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. No.
I will say that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying to go out and be disrespectful to anyone.
Right.
I'm just saying. Mean what you say.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Good stuff. Let's talk about how we can support ourselves and other women in living unapologetically.
Tell your friend to leave whoever she needs to leave.
Yes. 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 I'm snapping my fingers for that.
But seriously, I think honest, it comes down to honesty.
Yeah.
Don't allow your friends to think that a certain mindset or just be honest with them about what you actually and truly believe.
Yeah.
Don't just be a yes person to your friends.
Yeah.
To other women.
Yeah.
Let them know and encourage them on what they deserve. If I believe this about what I deserve for myself, I'm going to let you know that you deserve that too.
Right. Right.
Or if you need to do work on something, we have the type of friendship where, we're on that level. I'm going to tell you that. I'm not going to give you dishonest feedback about whatever is going on in your life if you're inviting me to give you feedback. And I'm not going to, and maybe it's just not in my character, but I'm never going to tell another woman something degrading and I don't think that people go into it thinking about saying something degrading, but some people might say, oh, well, you're lucky to have such and such a person, or you're lucky to have this and that, as opposed to,
sure.
I was actually just having this conversation where sometimes in a workplace, people might be like, well, you guys are lucky, or blah, blah, or in any scenario, people will be like, well, you're lucky. And to me, that diminishes the idea or, takes away or invalidates is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. Invalidates what someone thinks that they deserve.
Yeah.
If I feel like I deserve to make $200,000 a year and work 1 day a week, it's not for you to tell me that I don't deserve that. So I think being uplifting, and I mean, I don't know, to me, that's an easy thing to do because that's what I believe about myself.
Right.
But if I don't believe it if I don't believe that for myself, then I'll project my disbelief about what I deserve onto the other women in my life.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's so true. That might be the most important thing in that whole string. Well, you said a couple things. That's so important because if you can't live unapologetically yourself, then you cannot help other women to do it because you can't live it. You can say all the words, but you're not living it. The other thing you hit on, and there's going to be a whole episode on this coming later in the season, folks, but you hit on that weaponized gratitude. Well, you should be thankful. Well, you should feel lucky. And we'll have a whole episode on this. So I'm not going to go down. I want to give it all away. But that's something that I think we face all the time. And I'm not saying I'm not lucky. That doesn't mean this can't be better. And this doesn't mean I can't want more. And this doesn't mean it's perfect. You can be thankful, but also recognize, and there's a lot of people that don't want to hear that. And they will weaponize the gratitude and try to shame you into second guessing yourself on those things. And so, yeah, folks,
it could be, and let's bring this full circle. It could be, dad or mom or auntie or whoever. I don't like when you yell at me when I say that I don't want to get you a cup of juice. And they might say, well, you should be grateful that you have a place to live.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Famous last words by so many parents across America.
I should be grateful that I have a place to live. But doesn't mean I should also be grateful for you screaming at me.
Right. Yes. Yep. So we were discussing this in our staff meeting on Wednesday, but we're going to do a whole episode on that. And thank you for touching on that. So preview, that's to come later in the spring. I would say this is something you probably had to have a pretty good grasp on to do the things you've done the last couple of years. Coming back to your why / your values and how that defines and helps you, guides is really like a guidance and decisions you make on what you do.
I think, to be honest, that we put too much weight on life purpose. Because does life really need to have that deep of a purpose more than having fun and eating good food?
Oh, yes. Does it? And joy, just joy for the sake of joy.
Does it? Right. And I think it's great to find a life purpose and have a life purpose that guides you. But I think we put too much weight on comparing, if we don't have a life purpose or haven't figured out what it is, comparing that to people who have. It's okay to enjoy life until you figure out what that is, or enjoy the journey to figuring out what that is.
Yes. That's my husband's favorite term. My husband loves enjoy the journey. And
it's so true.
It is.
And it becomes truer and truer the older I get.
Absolutely. It will keep getting truer. And don't wait until you're 50 like I did to start unpacking that and figuring that out, because it's a heavy, if you're so wrapped up in that you're not living your life, it becomes a weight that you're carrying. And I think just listening to that inner knowing in you, that instinctual self of what the next best step, because it also allows you to live in the present. And I don't think we live in the present very well either. So thank you for saying, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's huge because there's so many people who might be around, getting out of college and stuff like that and feel like, oh, well, what's my life's purpose? Or I have to choose a major, or I majored in this, but is that my purpose? Or, and it can be daunting, but I don't think that it has to be. Yeah. And I think that to your point of like not waiting until your 50s, I've seen a couple of videos talking about, don't wait until retirement to plan the vacations you want or plan the things you're going to do on your bucket list. Like your bucket list starts now. Yeah. Start doing those things now. Start enjoying. You don't have to work miserably now to have fun later.
Yes.
That's not fun. That's lame.
Yeah. But I think that's a really common thing in our culture, period. And that we're starting to unpack now, that your generation has a much better grasp on of you living your life according to what it really aligns with who that you want to be as a person. And, and because I saw a lot, I've seen a lot, and I saw a lot of time in our time on Long Island too, because I think the proximity to New York City and all that brings out a lot of this. But my daughters at Adelphi went to school with a lot of kids whose parents had already told them, you're going to be an accountant, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a dentist. And they didn't want to do any of those things. But they're like, because we want you to be able to live in New York close to us, because it's so expensive here, you need to do those things. You got to make that money, and then you can enjoy the weekend. But you got to make that money during the week. And these poor kids were miserable. They did not want to be doing this. And some of them sprang free, and some of them just trudged along. And I just remember thinking, God, I feel bad for those kids, because they're not getting to be them, who they are.
Yeah. I am grateful to not have had that, which I think if I did, I would have just rebelled crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those people that I can't stomach that kind of thing for too long.
Yeah.
My major was going to be business. And I literally couldn't stand telling people that. So before the semester, I knew. And before my first semester started, I changed my major. So I never took a business class. I was like, nope, I'm changing my major. This is whack.
Yeah, this does not feel right. Does not feel authentic to me. I am out. Good for you. And good for you in living in a household that made you feel free to do that, because there's a lot of kids that we ran across and people that we know that did not. And even growing up, I think that your generation is doing a much better job of speaking to that and being willing to live that way and make those choices and feel freedom within that. That's awesome. Accepting the layered aspects of ourselves, all the stuff, all the experiences. Talk about that.
I think when there are layers of ourselves that we don't enjoy or we don't accept, I think the question to pose to ourselves is, first of all, starting to accept it by saying, I am whatever that thing is, or sometimes I am, or even if it's, I wonder if sometimes I am, and then following that with, and what's wrong with that?
Ooh.
And answer the question. If there's something wrong with that,
sure.
Talk to yourself about what is wrong with that. Like, sometimes I'm quick to judge. And what's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with that is that I could hurt someone's feelings. Unpack that with yourself. And I think a lot of what I said today is about having conversations with yourself and really self-reflection, which I feel privileged to have started doing at a young age. Not because someone taught me, but because I would get very upset about things like, I didn't do my homework. And so I'd be like walking home from school and I'd be thinking to myself, and I was a very energetic kid, but sometimes I was very quiet. And I would think to myself and reflect to myself, okay, Germaine, why are you crying? You forgot to do your homework. Okay. And what's the worst that's going to happen? You might get in trouble, but then what? Okay, do it the next night. Or like just kind of talking myself through it.
Wow. And that's so emotionally intuitive. My gosh, I'm so impressed that you had that skill. I mean, that's amazing.
Because I would get these feelings of this heavy burden weight of sadness or fear of getting in trouble about something like not doing my homework. So I had to figure out for myself, like, okay, I don't want to feel like this. Why do I feel this way? I'd rather feel happy.
Wow.
Let me unpack why I feel this way. And once I did it once, it alleviated all of that. And then I fell in love with doing it. And I was like, oh my God, that's great. Next time I get sad, I can just do that again.
Wow.
So I think that self-reflection and those conversations with ourselves are so important, because that's how we're going to make sense of things that we experience in the world, the feelings that we experience. What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? Why am I feeling that way? And is that, does that make sense to me? Or do I still feel that that's something I need to be worried about, or whatever the case is, or how can I solve that issue?
Sure. Oh, that's
so
and that ties really nicely into like the emotional health piece too, because you're unpacking it, you're unraveling, you're asking the right questions, and oh my gosh, I hope you understand that. What a great gift, and that you felt safe enough within yourself to do that, because and have the intuition. That's fantastic. And
it's so crazy because I just remember.
Wow.
I don't know if I went to the store or something, and I don't know why I would even be by myself that age, because most of the time my sister was with me.
Sure.
And so I guess maybe I went to the store to get some candy. I don't even remember, but I just remember standing outside just thinking to myself, okay, Germaine, stop. Why are you sad? What is okay? And so what if this happened? Is that difficult of a situation to deal with? No, it's not. What's going to happen afterward? You're going to be fine. Okay. And
wow.
Just as a little kid, and I don't know what or how or where I got that from, but
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And it serves you so well. Oh my gosh, that's just such a good tool, because we all need to do that. But I would say there's not very many little kids that have the intuition, or even and feel safe enough even within themselves emotionally to do that early on. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I keep saying I have favorite takeaways, but that's my new favorite takeaway. How has that affected the quality of your relationships? Being able to have those conversations, accepting the layered aspects of yourselves, setting the boundaries and expectations that you have. What is kind of effect does that have on your relationships?
I think that allows me to have deeper relationships, because if I can be honest with myself, I can be honest with the people that are close to me.
Sure.
But I think it also it gives me more room to deflect relationships that don't serve me, so that it makes me see myself and my emotions and my aura, my surrounding space, me, everything of me,
sure,
to see it as sacred and to see it as a place that I will not allow everyone into.
Yes. Not everyone gets to come on my island.
Exactly. It makes me more selective about the people that I allow in. But for the people that I do allow in, it makes it possible to have a deeper connection, deeper conversations, and a deeper understanding of each other, a more free sort of relationship, friendship, where I can truly be myself without calculating what to say, calculating how to behave, how to act, how to be, and gives me that space to be myself.
Yeah, I think that's so true, because I think that is a world that we let you put in one hat when you walk out the door and in another hat. And it's so important to have those places where you can just unfold and be your raw, authentic self and feel safe and known. I mean, I don't think you can put enough emphasis on the importance of that. Thank
that
you
allows
so much.
The other person in the relationship to be heard more often, because if I can reflect and talk to myself and realize maybe I was mean about this, and I can go check in with that person and see how they're feeling and understand them on a deeper level if I did make them upset or if I thought I did but I didn't, so
yeah. Well, just that giving's permission. When we do things and we see it and people see it models, it gives permission to reciprocate.
Yes,
that,
exactly.
And that's, creates that trust. We are down to the rapid fire. Name 5 activities that nourish you.
5 activities that nourish me. Journaling, meditating, eating,
yes,
drinking water, and exercising.
Awesome. Okay. 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
Free, open, rich.
Hey, rich can mean a lot of different things.
You said 5, right? Free, open, rich, bold, and beautiful.
Yes. Oh, so good. Thank you so much, Germaine, for this. I've been excited about this conversation for a while, and we had to delay it because I've been sick. So I'm super glad we finally got to have it. So much gold in this. Gosh, it was so good. And podcast audience, you're going to want to have your pen and paper available to jot down notes, because Germaine shares a lot of nuggets of wisdom. And what I love about this is it's just a great example of, I am 52 years old. I can learn so much from this 20-something who has just so much to offer and to learn, and has walked her life out in a different space and a different set of shoes, but has so much wisdom within that. And thank you. And I think that's so important for us to realize that we can, sometimes I think we get locked into age, respect, wisdom, not that there's not, truth within that. I certainly started this podcast because of wisdom I've garnered from my own experience. And that's true. But that does not mean that I cannot. I learn from my staff. My staff is full of 20-somethings. I learn from my staff every week, all the time, every day. So don't lose sight of that with each other, women and men and all of us, that there's so much from each other's stories that we can learn. So on that, we're going to close out this week's episode. Thanks so much for being with us. And podcast audience, have a great week.